Welcome to Reds Access, your weekly Cincinnati Reds podcast, with you throughout the entire 2025 season, covering Reds news, Reds games, and more. Follow us across social media platforms at Reds Access, Instagram at Reds_Access, and TikTok at Reds Access Official. We're your hosts, Collin and Kyler Osterberger, lifelong Reds fans who love to talk ball.
Hey guys, so we wanted to start off today kind of diving into why we love baseball, why we love the Reds. Collin, kind of kicking it over to you. Is there any particular moment or maybe moments when you were younger that kind of just clicked in your mind that you were like, I'm a Reds fan, this is what I love?
It's funny, Kyler, I thought of one moment in particular with this question, and it's such a insignificant moment in Reds history. The first thing that comes to my mind is Great American Ballpark. Probably the first or second year it was open. It was that black with the orange lettering. It wasn't even like the video board yet. It was just like the kind of the graphic board. And there was a Vladimir Ballantine was batting, and it was just such a nobody name. And I think it was like Griffey, Ballantine, a bunch of nobodies in that lineup. Man, Willie Mopena I think was batting. And I remember going to that game. I think it was a youth baseball game, like one of those things you get the tickets for.
Yeah, and a string backpack and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah. I brought my glove in the top section. Like I'm in the nosebleeds, think I'm gonna catch a fly ball. And then I kind of fell out of love with baseball for a little while, man. And man, I think it was just something that as the Reds kind of got better, I got into, right? And I think back to like Joey Votto, Jay Bruce, Johnny Cueto, going to opening days, watching Aaron Harang pitch and watching Albert Pujols crush home runs, just killing me. And then, again, some really tough years there in the teens with some really bad teams over and over again and heartbreaking teams in 10 and 12. And just recently, man, I kind of let that love slip away. And I've really found in the last couple of years, just really bringing it back into really just reliving my childhood, I think, and falling in love with the game. I fell in love as a little kid, and I stayed up watching with the TV on mute, just trying to make sure I didn't
catch every game. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Nice, dude. Yeah. So I don't really remember my age. I was young, maybe 6, somewhere in that range. But I remember going to a Reds game with my dad, and Bronson Arroyo was pitching. And I feel like no one can forget that big leg swing.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing that, and growing up, I played baseball. So going to a Reds game, you playing that sport and then you go into the professional game of that sport, it's mind blowing. And just being a 6 or 7 year old, whatever my age was, and seeing major league players and they're signing baseballs and you bring your glove to try to catch that home run ball, just all of those little things kind of add up and make that day at the park special. And another moment I remember when I was younger was Homer Bailey's debut. I went to that Reds game, went to Wendy's after. I remember the whole day, but seeing Homer Bailey do debut, growing up, I went to Chapman's debut as well. It's just cool to see the Reds and just how dynamic and just the farm league and who they're just the prospects and building up. And you get to see that happen. And at a young age, you're like, oh, this guy's good. I remember seeing him in the minors or whatever it might be. So just growing up and kind of following the Reds players get to make their debut, it was just really cool. And I think that's really what sucked me in, on top of just playing baseball pretty much my entire life until high school.
I remember I think it was 2019, Nick Senzel debuted. And I remember I didn't go to class that day. I bought tickets to that day game and went. And I remember I brought some friends with me, and I was talking about Nick Senzel nonstop, how he's doing the next big thing, and that never worked out, and he just couldn't stay healthy, And that kind of gets into my next point that, I know we're going to talk about our top few moments in Reds history, at least recent history for us, and just kind of build some hype up for this season. And I don't know about you, Kyler, but I had a tough time thinking of some moments, and it made me think back to the fact that we haven't had a lot of good teams in Cincinnati the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You got to think we've always kind of struggled with the Bengals. That's kind of a newer thing of winning the last couple of years with Joe Burrow. The Reds have struggled a lot. I think we both know that, and any Reds fan listening or watching is going to definitely agree with us on that. So, yeah, it's been tough kind of just watching the struggles through the years.
You know, this jersey I'm wearing about 3 sizes too big now, but it's a Nick Castellanos jersey. And when he got signed in 2020 or 2021, maybe 2021, I thought, man, we're spending money. We signed him, we signed Moose, we were signing all these guys, and we just came off of Trevor Bauer winning the Cy Young, and
I know.
I thought we had it together, man. I thought in 2021 we were going to have the team, and that team was terrible.
Yeah.
In 2020, I think we had the team. I think we had the team in 2012. We ran to the Giants. We ran to the Phillies in 2010.
We struggled in the postseason. We couldn't string wins together.
Can't score runs.
Couldn't do it.
The same thing in 20. We scored 0 runs in 21 innings or whatever, or 23 innings or whatever it was. It was 24. We had 2 extra inning games. We didn't score a run in. It's tough, man. But there have been some bright spots, right? And so I went and looked back here. And I think we went back, I don't know, I guess next 15 years or so. Kind of took a look back at the last 15 years of Reds history and 15 seasons and decided some of our top moments. And so I guess I'll start with my number 5 moment. That was March 31st of last year. I remember my buddies and I all got together for opening day. We got together and went to breakfast and dinner and did the whole park, got a hotel downtown way ahead of time, so we knew it was going to be packed. We won opening day, watched the second game from work, and they sucked. And I thought, oh, boy, we're going to lose the series to the Nationals in Game 3 because we were down in the 9th. I thought, wow, way to go. And Will Benson, man, who I've always had a soft spot for, a real soft spot for him, he takes that pitch in the left center field over the fence, and he is hyped up. It reminded me of that Dodgers home run from 23 where he hit that home run, and he said, let's effing go, and threw the bat down, and it was the big and then as they're talking about that home run, pitch 1, I think Encarnacion Strand swings and misses. Pitch 2, he takes. And they're just talking about the swing, and they're happy we tied it. You could just, I don't think the expectations were there this year or that year. And third pitch, Encarnacion Strand just rips an inside fastball over the stands in left field. And I went ahead and watched the clip in kind of preparation for this, and it gave me little jitters. I thought that was our year.
Goosebumps.
It did. I thought that was our year. When I saw that team, I thought we got the Rally Reds back. Actually, the MLB post for that game says Rally Reds win it and walk off in the 9th. We were anything but clutch in 2024. I think we're like 11-27 or something like that.
I think we led the league in most 1-run losses, I believe.
Terrible clutch coaching, which is something I'm excited about. We'll get into a little bit later. But that's my 5th. What do you have there in that slot?
So I went a little bit farther back than the 15-year, and it's a very, very long ago memory, but so on August 10th, 2004, this is going to go down, I think. This is why it's my top 5, but Adam Dunn's home run, it was 535 feet. It left the park. I believe it hit the road, bounced, went into the river. And they said technically, since the river is Kentucky state line, that Adam Dunn hit a home run into another state, and he will be probably the only player to ever do that. So it is long ago, and maybe a lot of people don't even know that or remember that. But I'm telling you what, go on YouTube, look up Adam Dunn 535-foot home run, and it's gonna blow your mind.
It's funny saying that. I'm thinking back to some older moments. I remember an Aaron Hernandez walk-off grand slam, watching it on TV. And I remember I sat there in my living room, my little stance, and I acted that out. And he had this weird bat stance, kind of like a BP, not BP, but he was crouched real low. And I remember I sat there in the living room. My parents probably sitting there thinking I was half stupid, and they
what are you doing over there?
No, I was cranking that home run in my mind about 800 times. And that kind of gets back to what we were talking about being a kid. It's baseball's romantic, man. It really is. And being a kid, you fall in love with it real easy.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like how we were kind of saying earlier, just all of the pieces that go to it. Like you go to the game, you bring your glove, you hope for a home run, you get peanuts. Like there's this whole thing that leads up to it. And then like you're ready to go and the game starts. And I just can't explain that feeling to someone that's never watched a baseball game live. Like it's completely different than watching it on a TV. just insane of being there, and especially like home runs or anything like that. It's just a crazy feeling, and it's fun to be a Reds fan when we're winning and we're doing great, hitting home runs. I mean, there's nothing you can want more than that. So,
speaking of fun times being a Reds fan, my fourth option here, so number 4 for me, was actually way more. It was a little bit further back than the opening day last, but not too old. I thought Ellie hitting for the cycle in his 15th game of the league was mine. So that was June 23rd of 23. I mean, wow. I mean, if there was ever any indicator, no matter how much he struggled at the end of the year, that he was going to be a star, it was such a car. Tom Brenneman lost his job, and everyone was worried who we were going to hire. We hired this guy that nobody knew of, and we heard he was a good voice, but he hits the "it's a cycle" oh man, that was electric. It was an electric.
That one's going to be on my list as well, just farther up, but I'll get into it when I do my side.
Like we said earlier, we got not so many great moments here in the recent past for the Reds, but what an electric moment. And it was on I think that was City Connect Day. Was that one of the was that City Connect Friday?
I was at that game, so I'll go into that.
The place was packed, man. And what an electric entrance to the show for the kid, man. It was impressive.
All right, so doing my number 4, I have September 24th, 2010. It's kind of far back again. But that was when Chapman recorded the fastest pitch in the MLB. He hit 105.8 miles per hour. And to me, it's just insane. I mean, I don't even know how to. I was a pitcher only when I hit high school, so I kind of got more into the art of pitching and learning, and just seeing someone throw almost 106 miles per hour is absolutely insane. First off. Second off, to claim him as our closer for many years was really cool. I know he struggled with placement, could get rattled a little bit sometimes, but I mean, when you're throwing that hard consistently, it's hard to hit. So that was a great memory for me. I was watching that game on TV. I remember I was 12 years old. He was coming in, and it hit 105.8. Everyone was talking about it, and I was like, holy crap, like this is insane. But that'd be my number 4 moment, is Chapman breaking the MLB record for fastest pitch.
I remember watching Hot Stove the next morning. Like, we're so excited before, not Hot Stove, Quick Pitch before school. I'd get up, walk get my breakfast, and turn on Quick Pitch. And I was just looking forward to that one clip. That was before the days of the MLB highlights on YouTube, where you can look up the one clip. You had to watch the whole 30-minute show to get to the Reds game from the night before. And we were usually about last because nobody was tuning in to watch the Reds. Number 3 for me, and I think we got another one here. It's going to line up. In 2015, Great American Ballpark hosted the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game, and the city was so hyped for that because, Bengals never hosted a Super Bowl. And, man, the Todd father walking it off, Home Run Derby. I got to say, this was something I kind of had to look for a little bit. It was such a short prime for the guy, and he had such a funky swing, and, he was so lengthy, and I guess you can't really expect anything else, but man, he was good there for a few years, especially, after Scott Rowland, and, we kind of had a hole over there for a while, and it was a great find when the Reds had him, but more importantly than his tenure as a Red was the special moment he gave a fan base that has been lacking in moments over the last 20 years, Kyler.
Yeah, I agree. My number 3 spot, and I think we have overlap on this one as well, is June 6, 2017, old Scooter, 4 home run game. I mean, I feel like you can't not put that on your top 5 moment. I mean, to hit 4 home runs in a game is super special. And for him to do that, be a Red, I feel like it really brought some life to the city. That next day, I remember ESPN, everyone was reporting on it. Super special game. And I just was a proud Reds fan that next day because everyone was talking about it. I mean, 4 home runs in one game is insane. It's an insane stat line.
That was a year we lost 94 games. So it's one of those things where you look for those happy moments,
Yeah, you find the little diamond in the rough. Like, that was something that got you excited.
If I'm not mistaken, that was the year that Votto was hurt. I think that might have been the year that he had a one of those years where he was hitting like 360 or something, man, and he got hurt, and it was just but you're right, we're overlapping. So that's actually my second most kind of favorite moment for the Reds, right? Is him hitting 4 runs in a game. And I always loved Jeanette and the player he was. And I thought it was criminal, man. The front office just refused to pay him after Brandon Phillips left town. He was never the replacement, they thought. You could tell. And I think I remember like the Cowboy talking about it every once in a while. That where his contract's in doubt, and they kind of let him just disappear into the sunset. And maybe they knew something we didn't, because I don't think he lasted more than 2 years in the league after that. But as a Reds fan, that was one of the first ones I saw, and that was when I realized there's a business. Here's this guy that I think he hit like 30 home runs one year, and he had that 4 home run game, and he was a productive player hitting the ball, and he would sit there on TV and talk about wanting to play for the Reds for his whole career, and it seemed like they never even came to him. So that was one of my top 5 moments. But man, I felt like they did Scooter dirty his tenure.
Kind of opened your eyes to the business side of the sport,
for sure.
All right, so my number 2, it lines up with your number 3, I believe, was Todd Frazier in the home run derby. So I won't go into him winning, but I'll go into kind of why it was personal to me in my top 5. So that year I was actually at a friend's house, and we were watching the All-Star break, the game, and the home run derby. I was staying, I think, a couple days with him hanging out. And my dad is in sales, and he won like salesperson of the year, whatever it was. And they offered him a ticket to either the home run derby or the All-Star game. And he picked the home run derby. So my dad went to the home run derby, watched Todd Frazier win, was insane. And to this day, I'm still jealous. I didn't get to go to the home run derby when it was at Great American Ballpark and Todd Frazier won. I mean, I feel like that's like one of those moments you're like, I really missed out in life, but it's my number 2. I'm not going to go into it much more because it was already on your list.
That's like one of those Goodwill Hunting moments, man, where like, you're talking about the game, how great it was, the walk-off home run, and I say, how you were there? And you say, no, I wasn't there.
That's I thought you were there.
Friend's house instead. I told you that. That was my number 1 moment, 9/28/10. I feel like this is probably, number 1 for a lot of people on their list. I know we've got different number 1 here, and you're looking more, I think, maybe a little bit newer. But for me, man, I think back to watching that game in my bedroom, in bed, late at night, bottom of the 9th inning, tie game. Jay Bruce comes off the bench. It was his first at bat of the night, facing a lefty. First thing the announcer says is hitting like 170 on the year against lefties. First pitch fastball, right down the middle at his knees. He jacks the ball, and Tom Brenneman goes high drive, left center field. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. And man, I thought the Reds were winning the World Series that year. And I think Roy Halladay threw a no-hitter against us there in that game 3 of the NLDS. If I remember correctly, he faced it might have been Matt Latos, actually. He was pitching against. Now, if I remember, Latos, I think, went 8 no-hit. It was whoever was pitching against, man, it was a solid game. And
yeah, it was a good game. I just don't remember. I think it was a late hit.
And it was.
I remember. I remember
who scored. It was Carlos Ruiz. Carlos Ruiz hit an RBI double in the top of the 9th, or was it the 10th? Did he go 10 innings, Roy Halladay, in that game?
I'm not sure.
I'll have to look in a second. We're going over yours.
I think you're right.
I
feel like I have a fond memory of him going deep.
Yeah, it was. Let's see, final game 3. No, it looks like it was just 9. But yeah, 2. They scored 2 in the top of the 9th, and it took the series, man. And that was it was cool. That's not the same. I'm getting stuff mixed up here. This was
going off of that. Jay Bruce was always one of my favorite Reds. Obviously, Joey Votto, of course, but back in the early 2010s, Jay Bruce. I actually met him for a lunch at Great American Ballpark. I have a baseball signed to Kyler from him. I'll have to dig it out of the archives, wherever it is. But yeah, I always loved Jay Bruce, and that was definitely a very electric moment to be a Reds fan.
Yeah.
But like you said, it was just, we can't win in the postseason. We're just shut off.
I'm looking back at this lineup, and we had Bronson Arroyo pinch run that game. The lineup was Brandon Phillips, Ramon Hernandez, Johnny Gomes.
Number 4, baby.
Johnny Gomes, Drew Stubbs, Jay Bruce, Joey Votto in the 5-hole. I'm looking at this game 2. We had Aroldis Chapman start the game as like an opener.
Yeah, he'd go like 3 innings maybe, but
he went 2/3 of an inning and gave up 2 hits and a run, and then they brought in Bronson Arroyo, who got shelled the whole game. I
think our rotation was
you're right. It was shot.
Yeah. I think we were deep into it, and it was kind of just throw anyone up there.
Yeah. Oh, but that's my number one is Jay Bruce leading us to that playoff year and taking us the distance there into the playoffs. And just I remember, like I said, sitting in bed. I got up out of my bed and I left-handed Jay Bruce and act like I hit the home run. Man, it was such a great moment. And like every
Tough,
other Reds
dude.
postseason since '99, didn't win a series.
Yeah. My number one moment, and you already kind of hit on it, was De La Cruz hitting for the cycle. That was a really special game for me. So it was June 23rd, 2023. That was the first Reds game I actually took Wesley, which is my son. At the time, he was 3. We sat behind home plate, 2 sections up somewhere, not like right behind, but the next section up.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was going to get some beer and nachos, and I think was it the triple he hit last?
Yeah.
I think it was the triple. He was sliding into third when I was checking out and walking back, and I heard the whole stadium go crazy. So I run back to my seat. My wife tells me that Ellie De La Cruz just hit a triple. It's now a cycle. I believe my brother-in-law, Jake, called and was like, "Did you see that?" And we're like, "We're literally at the game. Like, we are at the game. It is going crazy." I mean, I think people were screaming for like 5 minutes straight. Like, it was insane.
So did you hit it with the "I'm at the game, but no, I didn't see it"?
Nah, I think I just blew it all. Like, yeah, that's crazy. But I that's probably one of the most special Reds games I've ever gone to in my life and ever will. And I've been to a lot of Reds games, a lot. I went to a lot more when I was younger, compared to now with being a dad and going to work and all that kind of stuff. But going to the game that Ellie De La Cruz hit a cycle is like a bucket list. Like, it's a bucket list to see someone hit a cycle in real life. So, yeah, just crazy. Number one moment, it has to be, I was at that game, so it's really special to me.
Well, talking about big moments, and bucket list items, a bucket list item for me is seeing the Reds win the World Series this year, or just in general my lifetime, right? To see the Reds win a World Series. The
90s were a little too early for us, but
just a little bit. And I got to tell you, Baseball Prospectus, they don't think that's happening this year. So Baseball Prospectus's PECOTA prediction has the Reds at 73.5 wins this year. And I just got to ask, Kyler, how is that possible?
I don't know. I feel like we're just kind of down and out. I think that a lot of people don't take the Reds serious. And I really do think that we put together a contending team. I think that, in my opinion, I think that we're most likely going to be more around the 85 game wins, maybe a little bit more. Not sure how you're feeling on that, if that's too crazy, but I feel like 73.5 is a little low. I'm really liking some of the moves we made in the offseason, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But what do you think? What do you think we're going to be at wins when we end the season?
Yeah, I just don't see how 73.5 makes sense. Austin Hayes, we signed 1 year, $5 million. By the way, I saw Randall Grichuk got signed today for 1 year, $5 million. I gotta say, if that was the price on both of them, I'd probably go Grichuk. So I don't know what they liked in Austin Hayes. Maybe they didn't see in Grichuk. But anyways, Austin Hayes comes off a kidney infection that hurt him the whole year.
Tough year.
He was an all-star in 23. Jose Trevino's a hell of a backup catcher. And our experience with taking on previous Yankees has been great. Brady Singer is a solid middle of the rotation innings eater. I worry about his fly ball rate, but it's not like he's going to have a 6 ERA or anything. I mean, he's going to eat innings. Gavin Lux is Jonathan India 2.0, if not better. Gavin Lux hit 360 for the second half of the season last year. I mean, he was on a tear the whole. And if he rides 2/3 of that, he's a better hitter than Jonathan India was last year.
It's still tough to talk about India.
It is. Well, only because it's
soft subject.
I remember his debut, and I went and saw his debut. I like to go to the rookies' debuts, and I saw, and he had that hair, he grew out, and he had the Pirates of the Caribbean song playing for a while. But anyways, so they're adding almost 6 WAR. I think it's like 5.6 WAR in additions, and that doesn't include guys like Wade Miley that are just here you go spring training invites, and they did give him a spring training.
I don't think he's coming. I thought he wasn't coming back till like May.
He's
from
not,
Tommy
but
John.
they invited him to spring training. They put him on the 40, so he can't be claimed, I guess. I don't know. They threw him on the 40 and gave him a spring training invite. So I think that puts 77 plus 6 is 83, right? And that assumes guys like McLean, Strand, Ellie don't get better. Lodolo, Abbott, Hunter Green.
I like Abbott.
I do too. I like Abbott, but only because he's crafty. I feel like none of my liking of Abbott has anything to do with Abbott as a player. Or him as like a dominant pitcher. It's just like the way he pitches and
I like his style. I agree.
I put us at 85 wins and if not closer to 90. And so this team's going to fight for the division, Kyler, and it should secure a playoff spot. And one thing I do want to dive into next week when we get kind of into our predictions for the year and what we need, and just go over our offseason in general, is man, we need a closer. They totally unaddressed it during the offseason.
I agree. And to add to that, I think that I mean, some people might disagree with me, but I think we're kind of missing a power hitter. I think that we have a great lineup, but I think that we need to add a little bit more power. Maybe next week we can dive into some options that the Reds could add to kind of help in that situation. But yeah. I think that the closer, and I think that we're missing a power hitter. If we can kind of figure out those two spots, I would feel a lot better. But I mean, it's still the off season, still have time. But yeah, I really hope they add some power to the lineup.
I don't think they're going and getting anybody, unfortunately. But you know what? I think a healthy Strand can hit 35. I think Ellie can hit 30. I think McLean can hit 25. I still have faith in Will Benson somehow. I know how bad he sucked last year. I see Griffey in him, man. I do, and I'll stand by that to the day I die. I see King Griffey in him. He's just such a special. He has such a special swing, his swagger. But, those are all things I'm excited for in the next year. And so we also wanted to, on top of the top 5 moments we have, we want to jump into about the top 5 things we're excited for next year and kind of rapid fire these off. So a little precursor into our next week's episode, going over the offseason as a whole and looking towards some more Reds projections throughout spring training as we kind of dive into position group a week. For me, Kyler, my number one thing is I'm excited to see De La Cruz, grow into a potential 30 to 30 player. And the 30 stolen base isn't the problem, right? He stole 67, I think, last year.
Insane.
The home runs is, and he's just got to get a little more lift on the ball because you see him hit these 115 mile an hour line drives, and I think he can do it. I think this year's the year. I saw a stat that said basically 10% of his strikeouts last season, or 10% of his at bats rather, had a bad called strike, which is a lot, and he struck out looking a lot. His true strikeout. I
was going to add to that is I think he really struggled with striking out in 23. I think he improved on it in 24, but that's a big indicator to watch with him is can he effectively improve his eye. I mean, obviously you can't change bad calls, but when it's a tight full count, I mean, you can't go down looking, you can't be swinging at bad stuff. Like, just kind of control, composure. So I'm kind of hoping that he can build on being better at not striking out or not striking out watching.
Sure. Hey, is that your kind of, I know he's like the focal point for most Reds fans. So is that kind of what you're thinking as far as your most excited thing for the season is watching De La Cruz develop, or what would you?
Yeah, so my number one is watching De La Cruz develop. I think he's a special player. I don't think there's many players like him. I know he's young and there's a long road to go, but from what we've seen the last 2 years, he's special. I'm really excited to see him grow as a player and as a person. I know he's been learning more English so he can kind of talk in the dugout and to the coaches, be more relatable. I also think that he's great. Besides his play, he brings a lot of good publicity to Cincinnati. And I'm hoping that with the new head coach, Terry, I hope that they can build on that because he's obviously a successful MLB coach. And just like maybe we can bring some pieces in because of that, because of the new head coach over the offseason. Ellie De La Cruz. I'm hoping they can build off that because, like, look at it with the Bengals, like bringing Joe Burrow in. You bring that excitement. You make other free agents or other players want to come play in that city. So I'm hoping to see De La Cruz prosper. I'm hoping that maybe it makes it more interesting for other players to come to the Reds because they want to play with him. So I guess we'll just have to kind of see how that kind of plays out over his career. But I'm really excited to see how he grows as a player.
So you think he's going to give him the Ohtani treatment? Is that people are going to want to come play with Ellie De La Cruz?
I hope. I mean, I think he's exciting. He's on, and we just learned this the other day. He's on the cover of MLB The Show with Skeens and who was the other? Henderson.
I think it was Gunnar Henderson, with the Orioles.
So I'm hoping that all that fame, that publicity just kind of helps maybe bring some larger free agents to Cincinnati.
I'm all for larger free agents, and I loved in 21 when we signed all these guys, but we have a lot of talent here too. And there's some young guys I think that I want to see develop and become bona fide studs, right? And those are guys like I want to see Hunter Green solidify himself into an ace, and Christian Encarnacion Strand go deep 40 times this year if he can figure out whatever was an issue with him last year. I think it's a broken finger, right? Is what he was struggling with, and thumb. There's young guys that can take the step. And, also there are some veterans that could see different roles this year. And guys like Graham Ashcraft, I think could be a great bottom of the bullpen type of guy, like a setup guy. Or really, I would like to see Graham compete for the closer role. I think he'd be a solid opportunity. When he goes out there and he gives it 130%.
I agree. I don't know if I agree with the closer position. I feel like it's kind of a test it and see what happens. But I do agree with you. Good setup, deep 7/8 inning, great choice to throw out there. He does give it his all. But I don't know, man. I'm open to the closer role. I'm kind of curious on what the Reds are planning to do with that. If they're gonna acquire someone or, like you said, just kind of move someone from the rotation to that role. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, we got Taylor Rogers, right? Who's closed in the past, and Santillan throws about 100, and he's got good stuff. And Alexis Diaz took such a step back last year that people aren't relying on him. So I still think it's probably his to lose going into the spring, but I imagine if there's somebody with a real dominant spring training, they'd probably be open to it. I just hope we don't go into the closer by committee things. It never works.
Yeah.
It never works. You need a guy that comes in and shuts it down. But my third thing, and, I kind of was just going player by player here. I think you've got some more kind of lofty goals here. But my third thing is Jeimer Candelario. I think I want to see him stay healthy. There's a lot that was said about him not hitting early on in the year, and he did not hit early on in the year. But when he finally got going, man, he had 16 bombs before the All-Star break. He was on pace for 32.
Yeah.
And he had 4 afterwards. He couldn't stay on the field and stay healthy. So I know he had bad stats last year, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I really think a healthy Jeimer Candelario, and hopefully maybe DHing, helps with that. I think he's a big weapon in the middle of the lineup and maybe gives those 25, 30 home runs you're saying we need to kind of put some presence in the middle of that order and protect guys like De La Cruz and Strand.
Yeah. Going on my second one besides De La Cruz prospering, I'm hoping that we win the NL Central. I know that's kind of a big swing, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I do think that this year, if we're going to do it, is a good year too. We have a great team, young as well. And I think bringing on Terry as the coach, I'm really hoping that he can bring the tradition that he did with Boston. I mean, Boston Red Sox in the early 2000s struggled against the Yankees. They couldn't win against the Yankees. They got to the postseason every year. They lost to the Yankees.
Yep.
Terry helped them get over that hump, and he coached at Cleveland years later, got them to the World Series as well. And I'm hoping that he can bring that tradition. He can bring that coaching. He's smart, super smart.
Yeah.
He has a great lineup. I mean, I can't really complain. Like we kind of talked earlier, the closer, and I would like more of a power hitter in the lineup. We have a great lineup. So I think we've added the pieces. I think the head coach was a really big spot. With Terry coming in, I do think that we have a good chance to win the NL Central this year.
No, I totally agree. I think we have one of the better pitching rotations in baseball, and that's the most asinine thing about that PECOTA projection we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They have us giving up the second most runs in the league behind the Rockies. I don't see how that's possible. We have a good staff, man. I think we have one of the better rotations and bullpens in baseball. We're going into a pre-spring training where there's only 2 roster spots open in the bullpen. And the number 1 and number 2 guys fighting for that bullpen spot are Graham Ashcraft and Carson Spires, both guys that gave quality innings last year.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like we're in a tough spot with the bullpen. I'm not saying we have 8 bona fide all-stars in the bullpen, but I think we have guys that can give us solid innings. And I think the lineup's good enough to win with the pitching staff for running out there every day.
Yeah. I just think we need to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
One-run games. We talked about it earlier, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I knew that we were pretty high up there for most one-run game losses last season. And I don't know the statistics on it exactly, but I know Terry's really good in those type of games. And hopefully his decision-making can change that, because I think you said, I think there was like 20-something one-run games we lost.
15 and 28 was the record. We were 15 and 28.
Yeah, 28. Imagine if we could convert majority of that over.
Just
it's a
500.
big,
Just go 500. That's 84 games right there.
Right. So I think I'm kind of banking on Terry coming in, our young lineup, our pitching rotation. I feel like there's just so many good things to think about, and there's so many pieces that if we can't do it, it's got to come down to injuries, whatever it might be. I really do think this is our year to get to the postseason and do something.
Yeah, and there's guys like was it Dan, or I don't know if it's Dan or Jeff Passan on MLB Network, MLB.com, talking about how the Reds are the most improved offseason, and the main reason he said that was Terry Francona. Yeah. You give a bunch of young guys a coach that's been there and done it and brings a winning culture to the team. I wouldn't want to play the Reds. It reminds me a lot of the Bengals in 21. Young guys, you don't know what they have. And, I saw Chris Welsh talking about, talking about what this team is bringing in the spring training. And I saw it on Twitter today, and he was saying that, this team, he showed up early and guys like Abbott were already there pitching bullpens, and that he could just feel there was a different feel in the air this year. These guys expect to win this year. It's we hope they expect to win.
Well, Terry isn't the type of coach to not expect to win. I mean, he's brilliant.
Games out and you're playing catch up, right? That's not how he plays ball. What are some of the acquisitions you think, like guys are, I guess, impact players you think guys are going to impact us most this next year?
Yeah, so obviously De La Cruz. I think De La Cruz will do many things. His stolen bases obviously are a very important factor when it comes to baseball, on base percentages, stuff like that. Because you got to think, when you can get De La Cruz on base, let's just say a single, that guy can steal to third, and then you can sacrifice fly, you can ground out, whatever. That guy's getting home.
Yeah,
I mean, he's getting home 10 out of 10 times, 11 out of 10 times. So I think he's obviously going to play a big role. I'm most worried about the pitching rotation with staying healthy. I think, like you said, we have one of the better pitching rotations, but they just got to stay healthy. Like we can't play this game of getting behind, having injuries, people come back and trying to play catch up. So I'm really going to be watching the rotation. Hunter Green, like you said, I hope he can become the ace. I hope that he can stay healthy. I'm really excited to watch him pitch this year.
Quit throwing up on the mound.
Yeah. God. It's true.
I think that just going over everything here, I think we're excited. We're going to be watching it with you guys here this year throughout the season every week. We'll be posting videos and our podcast here to kind of go over the week of baseball. Now, for spring training, we're going to be diving in different position groups. Next week, we'll jump into the off-season editions and who we think will be the biggest impact players, not just impact overall and what we're looking for, but who's going to make the biggest impact in 2025. And then we're going to jump into position groups as we get through spring training, talk prospects a little bit, and really just ramp the hype up for opening day this year. As the Reds make their way towards that opening day parade down there, that Findlay Market opening day parade. But Kyler, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Reds Access. So to everybody that watched, big thanks for tuning in. And Kyler and I, we'll be back soon with more breakdowns, hot takes, and everything you know about your Cincinnati Redlegs. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and keep the conversation going with us on social media. That helps us out a ton. And, I want to go ahead and, as we end this first episode, go over a little catchphrase to end it here on out. And so I thought of this one here. It's a rounding third and headed for home for Kyler Osterberger and myself. Go Reds.
Go Reds, baby.